In case you haven't heard, there is a two-part docu-series being released by Discovery Plus on the 20th of September in the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial, which boasts to have exclusive access to the lawyers, a forensic analysis of the US case, along with what happened in each of their respective lives, both before, during, and after the trial. Apparently the first part is going to be focusing on Johnny Depp and his previous life and his life throughout the trial, and the second part is going to focus on Amber, and notably in the article that I read, focusing on the social media hate backlash against her during and after the trial. So doubtless many of you will be left wondering how they can have access to the lawyers in a case, and whether the lawyers are allowed to speak about a case such as this, or any case at all. Well, speaking for England and Wales, there used to be a prohibition on barristers, for example, from giving their opinion on a case, whether it was live or not. Oddly enough, we are now permitted to give our opinions on a live case, even if it's a case in which we are acting, so long as, and here's the key point, so long as we are not compromising our client confidentiality, so long as we're not bringing the profession into disrepute, and so long as we are not causing an interruption or prejudice to the natural course of justice. Obviously, that is more prevalent if the case is still live and ongoing. So what you can expect from this docu-series is probably quite interesting, depending on what the lawyers are permitted to say. And I say permitted to say because it's twofold, really. It will be based firstly on their own opinions, on what they are allowed to say within the rules relative to their jurisdiction, and I mean that internationally, whether they've spoken to international lawyers. And secondly, of course, if there's any material or information that is otherwise or was otherwise privileged between lawyer and client, then quite obviously Johnny Depp and Amber Heard respectively would have needed to give permission for their lawyers to speak of such things. Otherwise it would be a breach of their confidentiality. Whereas opinions, on the other hand, they could be asked questions, they could provide opinions, and so long as they're not going outside of their rules of their relevant jurisdiction and bar regulations, then they can give their own opinions. But there is another fairly interesting element that I would like to bring up for discussion in the comment section down below here on what you think might happen. Because there is a very real potential, and I certainly hope the makers of this docu-series, and I'm sure they have, consulted lawyers on the content before it's aired. But there is the very real potential for something to be said which might be objectionable to the other party. Now, I don't know whether or not they've shown the Amber section to Johnny Depp and or his lawyers, and vice versa, whether they've shown Amber Heard and or Heard lawyers the section about Johnny Depp. If they haven't done so, and they haven't got the go-ahead from both parties, which I can't really see how that's going to work. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. I honestly don't know. But let's just say that they didn't do that, and there is something objectionable in one part of the docu-series that the lawyers for the other respective party might disagree with. There might even be the potential for yet another lawsuit off the back of this docu-series. So I certainly hope, and I would certainly expect, that lawyers have been consulted in the creation of this docu-series and the final edit of this two-part series before it airs. One thing I can say is that there is a certain degree of irony in all this, from both sides of the case, i.e. Depp fans versus Heard fans, because some people were very upset that this whole trial was so publicised. But that being the case, this docu-series is surely going to give rise to further discussion. So any agreement by the lawyers and or the parties vis-a-vis the content of the docu-series surely must also acknowledge that there's going to be a significant amount of discussion following the series. I, for one, will be very interested to see what the content of this docu-series is, and if there is anything of interest to come back and talk about, and anything that we might find potentially damaging and potentially giving rise to further lawsuits, of course we will let you know what those are. But in the meantime, I don't know too much about it. Safe to say that lawyers can speak out in the way that I've described, if anyone was wondering. So with that said, please remember to like my video and subscribe so that you get any updates as this progresses, and I'll see you next time.